So welcome back to the Light Up Your Life podcast with your host, Samantha and Alexa. Today we have a very special guest. His name is Sir Brad Blazer. He's a former CEO of a small oil company, is now a sought-off speaker and mentor on raising capital, syndications, and launching funds. He's raised over $2 billion and mentors others globally on how to raise funds from high net worth investors to build, buy, and to scale their businesses or fund special projects like real estate. He has an extensive network of family offices, advisory firms, broker and dealers, and has closed the largest multi-million-dollar transactions for multiple leading real estate firms. Brad is a real estate investor and author of 3 books, and he has shared the stage as a speaker alongside other well-known leaders and celebrities. And he was just recently knighted in a royal investiture ceremony alongside Tony Braxton, Paula Abdul, Ray Parker Jr., and other public figures. And now he uses his noble title to bring awareness to the fight against cancer. So we are so excited to have you on our show. It's such a pleasure.
Well, thank you so much, Samantha and Alexa. It's great to be here. I love doing these. For me, it's all about empowering people like the two of you are doing and just making people realize that, you know, your past really doesn't dictate what's ahead of you. You just have to be intentional, plan your goals, and then just go for it.
Mm-hmm. And that was a pretty extensive bio, like Alexa was saying.
Well, you know, it's really funny. I was at an event this weekend in Miami, and there must have been somewhere around 2,800 people. And I was the only, quote, sir in the room. So, you know, it's one thing that when you meet people, it's just, you know, what will they remember about you? You know, I mean, it's like, how many times in life will you actually meet somebody that carries a noble title? So certainly, you know, that was a big honor and a tremendous recognition for just a lot of the things that we do, the lives we've impacted. And more importantly, to be able to say, you know, I'm in a royal order alongside these other phenomenal celebrities that are, you know, known around the world, like Ray Parker Jr., Tony Braxton, Paula Abdul, and we have so many others that are professional athletes, like 4-time NBA All-Star Rolando Blackman, you know, Hall of Fame in the NBA. So it's funny because I always get solicited. You know, people are calling me, hey, you know, pay us $25,000, $30,000 to join our mastermind. And I'm like, let me tell you something, buddy. My mastermind is a hell of a lot bigger and better than yours. So and I can save my money, but we have a lot of fun with it for sure.
That's great. I know you wanted to dig a little more into
Yeah, no, that is amazing. I've never met anybody who's been knighted before, and I've of course heard of other celebrities that were. So this is huge, right? How does one get selected to be knighted? Can we dig in a little bit?
Well, yeah. So, you know, when you look at, you know, people around the world that carry noble titles, like, you know, obviously Lady Angelina Jolie, or, you know, Anthony Hopkins, Richard Branson, Elton John, all of these people, it's based on what the nobility refer to as honors of merit. So basically in nobility, the royal order or the royal family is able to basically bestow a title of knighthood onto somebody based on what they call honors of merit. And these are obviously accomplishments in certain sectors. For example, you know, philanthropy. If you're known globally as a tremendous philanthropist, you can be knighted. I mean, Angelina Jolie, while she's a great actress, she also has adopted all of these children from, you know, all of these impoverished countries. And so the Queen looks at that as an act of goodness. And obviously, because of her philanthropy and bringing these, you know, children into her home, she was granted the noble title of, you know, Lady Angelina Jolie. And then you look at people like Elton John or, you know, Anthony Hopkins, Richard Branson. Those are accomplishments maybe in business or theatrical arts. And so I was approached by a gentleman that was knighted a few years ago that got to know me and said, Brad, you know, I really admire everything you're doing. And of course, you know, your philanthropy and your success as an entrepreneur. Would you consider being knighted? And when he asked me, I was just like what, like Sir Brad Blazer, you know, I'm thinking, of course, the first guy that I'm like, well, you know, like, how does this work? He said, well, you probably didn't know, but I was knighted a few years ago, and I would like to nominate you through the process. And I'm like, first question I had is like, does it cost anything? Because I'm very familiar, with like Knights of Columbus, or like
Yes.
Fraternal Order, and he's like, no, this is a true royal title. We've applied with the United Nations as a sovereign nation, and this is recognized in the European courts as a true royal honor. And I'm like, hell yeah, let's do it. And so he nominated me, and you basically go through an interview process where a fellow knight can introduce you then to what we call a duke. So a duke is a level above a knight, and then from there you go perhaps to the baron, and then ultimately the prince. And as long as you check the box and you go through background checks, you eventually get invited to what they call an investiture. And that is basically the ceremony that takes place where you then are given the noble title. Of course, you bow down to the nobility, which is the prince in this case. You get on one knee, and he basically, does the thing with the sword. You get up and you turn yourself around and you present yourself to the audience now as Sir Brad Blazer. But, it was an event that I'll definitely never forget. My wife was there, my daughter was there, and the way they open the ceremony is the U.S. Marine Guard come in and they basically do a procession. They call it the color guard, where they're carrying the flags. They all got the rifles, they're marching in, and then behind them, the Scottish Royal Bagpipers came in, photographers, paparazzi. So it was definitely a royal gala for sure.
What did they make you wear? Did you have to wear like some sort of cape?
So when you are knighted, you are given a royal robe. And so it's a white robe with a red collar. And then you have a sash that goes around your neck with the royal cross, which is jeweled. And so you're able to wear that. And then if you're out, in business attire, there's a nice little lapel pin that I wear on my lapel, on my sports coats and on my jackets. And people always say, what's that for? Oh, you're talking to Sir Brad Blazer. What? And then I show them the pictures on my cell phone and everything.
Wow.
I'd say probably the best part about it, and people always ask, is yes, you do get to keep the sword. So hanging in my office
That's amazing.
is the sword that is engraved with the royal order, the date of the investiture, Sir Bradford H. Blazer, my legal name, and then of course the certificate that you receive that's also filed in the European courts, which is now framed. It's definitely a conversation piece. There's no doubt about it.
Sure, definitely. And so your title is to bring awareness to the fight against cancer. So how does being knighted help you bring that awareness? And then secondly, why does this topic mean so much to you?
It means a lot for two reasons. Number one, I lost my father a little over 20 years ago to cancer. And I've seen so many families struggle. And I don't necessarily believe it is a curable illness, but certainly I think through technology, medical advances, so many things have changed. They really now, of course, have given people a fighting chance. And so when I started my quote coaching and speaking business, you'll see in all my books, right in the front cover, it says a portion of all of the author's proceeds do go to MD Anderson for the fight against cancer research. But every time I speak, every time, of course, somebody enrolls, anytime I sell a book, a portion of that, of course, then is siphoned off and it just sits in the account. And of course, a couple times a year, we write a nice check or we go down to the hospital and we just basically, hang out for a couple hours with the kids that are going through cancer and of course, some of the families, but it really just makes a tremendous impact. I'm not necessarily saying that quote will ever find a cure for cancer, but, having lost family members, of course, my sister was diagnosed with breast cancer. And so I just see the impact it has on people and families. And I think that, even as an adult today, for somebody, for example, to go to their dermatologist and have the dermatologist say, you have a melanoma.
Yeah,
it's such a scary thing because we all know that can spread, obviously, if it's not responded to and treated properly. And so many people don't even do that. But that really should be a wake-up call to everybody. Most people think about cancer as something that's internal, like liver cancer or lung cancer. But let's not forget that, if you're a sun worshiper like I was growing up, as a lifeguard, you can also get skin cancer. And it's not necessarily just the melanoma, you can have a basal cell, but that, of course, over time can evolve. And so I always tell people, when you get into your 30s, 40s and older, in addition to your family physician, you should also go to a dermatologist and just make sure that those moles or those freckles or whatever it is you have aren't suspicious. Because you don't want to have any issues later in life.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I can definitely relate to that. I actually did lose my grandfather to melanoma, and it was scary. He didn't look like the same person. It was eating him from the outside in, and it was terrible. So, seeing a dermatologist is super important nowadays. And it's something that I do with my daughter and with my family, and something that, is very critical for us. I know that I have it within my family history, so it's super important and absolutely relatable.
Me too, really.
Absolutely. I
My
totally agree.
mom, yeah, my mom, aunt, and grandma all had breast cancer. So, you bringing awareness to this is really, really amazing. So I
Absolutely.
commend you for that. That's awesome.
Yeah, and just being able to call different charitable entities, Salvation Army, as an example. Me and another knight partnered, and we created an NFT as a project for the Salvation Army called The Safest Place. And this is an NFT that now, of course, trades on the blockchain. And when you buy it, you're getting a full documentary motion picture that chronicles people's lives that have been impacted in a positive way through the Salvation Army. You get a soundtrack where my friend Billy Dorsey Jr., two-time Grammy Award-winning musical artist, recorded 5 fantastic songs. And then, of course, you get the artwork that's part of this NFT. And every time a coin is bought or sold, half of the proceeds go to the Salvation Army. And then, of course, the other half go back to the investors that I solicited and raised the capital for. But it's just, using that noble title and kind of, as I say, living a life by knightly virtues, because you can do so many things when you say the Royal Order would like to assist you in raising capital for your charity. Can we sponsor an event? Can we do a gala? And so we're doing a gala actually in Chicago next month, basically renting and taking over the Rolls-Royce dealership. And it's just going to be a major event. It's a charity fundraiser.
Amazing.
Yeah, that's so cool.
So if we're all set with this topic, we want to go ahead and pivot. In the bio, Samantha actually mentioned that you have a trademark. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Sure. Yeah, that was.
We didn't know if we could say it.
Are we even allowed to say it?
Sure. Yeah, go right ahead.
Go ahead and introduce it. That would be awesome.
So it's really funny kind of how this career of being a person of interest, kind of getting on stages really evolved for me. Ever since I was a little kid, I've always said, man, I want to be a Tony Robbins, I want to be a Zig Ziglar, I want to impact the world. And you always kind of wonder, like, how can I do that? How can I set that in motion? And so when I was in school, my ambitions initially were to be an architect. I think a lot of us are in families where your parents kind of push you in the direction of education and get a college degree, and they certainly scrimped and saved like most parents did. And so I went off to college with the ambitions of studying architecture. Architecture is a 5-year degree program. And so in my 4th year as a senior, of course, I had discovered girls, and I realized I needed to have some money in my pocket to go out on dates. So I was looking for a job, and lo and behold, I was hired by a very small oil company. And they hired me to essentially get on the telephone and build trust and establish relationships with individuals as investors to invest alongside us. And so I did that very well. Went to work for a second oil company doing the same thing. But unfortunately, the guys behind the second oil company were dishonest. And so I basically realized I didn't want to associate myself with them. So I immediately resigned. I contacted all the investors that I had basically brought together, and we organized a class action lawsuit. But at the age of 23, at the time, we didn't have Zoom. We didn't have the technology that we do today. They just said, hey, what are you going to do now? And I just realized that this was like a huge door that I just saw open in my life. And I said, why don't I start an oil company? I mean, I got the investors and they know me and they trust me. So I printed up some letterhead and a business card and opened up a company called Third Coast Petroleum, basically raising capital from investors to go out and drill for oil and natural gas in Texas, Oklahoma, Louisiana. And the funny thing is, I had never drilled an oil well before. I didn't know about building or running a multi-million-dollar business. I wasn't a college graduate. And, my parents, of course, were like, you're crazy to drop out of school. And one day, of course, when the TV show Dallas with J.R. Ewing was one of the biggest TV shows, I come driving home in a new Porsche. And I went from being the black sheep in the family to being introduced as, this is our son, the CEO of an oil company.
Yeah. Wow.
Really convinced my parents, that I had what it took. So we built that company up. And in the late 80s, due to some changes in the tax laws and also collapsing energy prices, I kind of made the decision to just slowly dissolve the business, close the doors. Never had to file for bankruptcy because we didn't have any debt. We were basically debt free. And I made the decision to go back to school and finish my education. But during that time, I started writing a book. And it was to really just chronicle what I had accomplished. I mean, how many 23-year-old kids start multi-million-dollar oil companies?
Not many.
Really kind of chronicled what I had done, but I never finished because life took a turn of events, and I never really completed the manuscript. And about 4 years ago, as I was cleaning my office, I found the floppy disk that I had started that project on almost 30 years ago. And I'm like, wow. We don't even use floppy disks today.
Oh.
Like, how can I get
Probably don't know what it is.
how can I get this manuscript off this disk? And so I'm calling everybody. I know, man, you have a floppy disk. I'm like, dude, I got rid of it like 20 years ago. I'm like, I got this thing that I finally, I called Best Buy. They have the Geek Squads. And so
helped you out.
He came out to the house and he helped me and downloaded the manuscript. And so I finished the book. And I largely did it because now I'm married. I have a daughter. And I always try to teach my daughter, you finish what you start. And so now I've got this book. So I put it up on Amazon, self-published it. And a couple of months after, I get a call from a very good friend of mine. And he said, Brad, I was trying to buy your book on Amazon and I wanted to tell you it's #1.
What?
And I'm like, where? Like on Amazon #1?
That's amazing.
And so no, he said, like literally over in the United Kingdom, your book is the #1 book on a huge literary blog for young entrepreneurs. They rank the top 10 books and your book is the #1 book. And how it happened, I have no idea. Somebody must have bought it, read it, loved it.
Mhm.
So what I did was really smart. I took that information, I put a cover letter together. I sent a book to every major university in the United States that had a program for entrepreneurship. And I started getting calls, Mr. Blazer, thank you so much. We'd like to invite you to come speak to the student body. Would you like to? Sure, I'll come.
Oh.
And the funny thing is at the time, I had no idea I could get paid as a professional speaker. So I'm flying all over the United States, at my expense, speaking in front of universities, students, inspiring and motivating them, giving them my books and everything. Then I started getting invited to appear on radio shows. Hey, we heard about you. You're the dude that raised $2.5 million that just spoke at UT. Would you like to be interviewed on the radio? Sure. I started getting television spots. And so one day I just sat down with my wife and I said, there's a fork in the road here. I'm doing very, very well, making upper 6 figures, raising money for some large companies, had a great lifestyle. I said, I want to quit doing that and I want to do this. And she was real concerned. I mean, she's like, this doesn't work, man. It's going to cost a lot of money. You have no 401k, you got no healthcare benefits. And I said, I know, but I got to do this. It's inside me. And so we started our coaching program. And my coaching program initially was largely mindset, how to be successful, how to create goals. And I realized that as people, the level of success we ultimately achieve is largely driven by our habits. You got to have good habits first.
Agreed.
Your habits will basically create over time a new belief system. And so you start establishing new beliefs about what you can do based on those habits or those rituals. And then that essentially drives you forward to create what I call that new reality, which is the transformation that will take place in your life as a result of those things. And so I came up with this thing called the Art of Beliefology, which is basically now trademarked, which means no other coach, no other author, no other person can use the Art of Beliefology or the word beliefology to basically explain that philosophy that says habits define a new belief system, which creates the transformation to move you forward and to find a new reality. And so it's pretty cool. It's a long process. We had to file the paperwork and everything with the US Patent Office, but now we got the nice certificate that proudly hangs in the office. It says the Art of Beliefology is now a federal trademark. And it's really interesting because somebody else had tried to use that. And my attorney, of course, contacted them and shut them down right away.
Yeah, that's pretty wild. That's really cool. And so do you think, are you really big into energy in that your thoughts create your reality and your thoughts create your habits, like you were saying, and your belief system. So when you're changing your thoughts, your beliefs and you keep doing it over and over again as repetitive, that will in turn change your belief system around things.
Absolutely, 100%. It's sad and it's unfortunate, but the majority of people take the easy street. Our brains are wired to do one thing and only one thing, and essentially that's keep us alive. And so it's the natural tendency of just every living person to back away from anything that is scary or that has any quote fear attached to it. Starting a new business, it's a scary proposition, so people never start. Why? Because it scares them. It's like the outcome if I'm not successful. So we tend to retreat to what I call a place of comfort. And you have to learn that many times you just have to address and face the fears and just walk right through the door and just, show up every day. But, John Maxwell, who's of course one of the most widely acclaimed authors, I've shared the stage with John and was able to speak to him. He said, transformation in reaching a level of success requires intention in life. You need to be intentional. He said, if you think about a pilot in an airplane, he has to intentionally pull back on the joystick for the plane to rise, or a race car driver has to push down on the accelerator intentionally for the car to go faster. He said the same thing is in life. He said, if you just sit there and do nothing, you're going to get whatever life throws in your lap. Exactly. But if you're intentional by design and create your goals and you create your roadmap, you can create the life you want to attain by being intentional and instilling those daily habits. And so I watch a lot of the people around me that are on stages that are at a level above me, and I ask them, what are you doing? Well, I have this ritual. I wake up every day, I get my workout in, or I do my meditation, I do this, I do that, and I learn. And even though I don't like to do it, I do it anyway, because
I agree. I'm the same way.
Because very successful people will tell you, you need to block out the noise. You just need to have it and do it whether you like it or not. Tim Grover, who of course coached some of the most famous athletes in the world, asked people like Kobe and Michael Jordan and Tiger Woods and Alex Rodriguez, you weren't born more talented or gifted than the other players that are in the league. Like, what makes you different? And the one thing that he basically came up with is that you have to sell yourself on the life you want to live. It's like looking in the mirror one day and just saying, man, I'm sick of being an amateur. I'm going to put my amateur sleeves over here in the garbage can. And tomorrow morning when I wake up, I'm going pro, but I'm going pro in every single area of my life. It's not just business, it's relationships, it's my health. If you've ever read any of the books about Steve Covey, he talks about the whole person theory, 4 elements of us as humans: mind, body, spirit, soul. Yes. And so I believe in that wholeness and basically living that lifestyle, or work out every day, spend time with my daughter, obviously spend time on the business, and then obviously have a connection to some type of a superior being, whether you're, religious or not, but you should realize that, there probably is some type of a connection. But it's really just understanding these things and saying, I'm going to go pro in everything we do. I'm going to show up on time. I'm going to treat other people as equals, et cetera, et cetera. But I think that largely is something that's overlooked in society. And it really just pains me, because I wake up every day, man, and I see these people being shot for no reason. It's like, dude, you ran a red light and so you popped off some dude, or these gangsters. They just have absolutely no value for human life. And I really think, unfortunately, that our country, I won't say is spiraling out of control, but I really think that we need to really step back as America, take a look at what we have here, and more importantly, as Americans and as citizens, just realize, man, we're the strongest damn nation on planet Earth, but we ain't acting like it right now.
I completely agreed. And to go back to your point too, I think how you do one thing is how you do everything.
Exactly.
So like you said, you need to go all in on everything that you're doing in your life and putting forth your best foot. So
I totally agree, 100%. It's just showing up every day. It's funny because there's so many things on the journey to success, to attaining riches, to being a person of interest that we just don't want to do. It's hard work. And a lot of times when I show up on stage as a example or as a metaphor, I'll have this big inflatable emoji, and we've all seen that emoji. It's a big old pile of poop. And so my name, I come running up there and it's under my arm, and I'm right on the stage.
I want to see that.
And then I just stand there and I don't say anything. And people are like fixated on this big old pile of poop sitting next to me. And And after about a minute, I just say to the audience, you're probably all wondering why that big old pile of poop is sitting right there next to me, aren't you? And they're all, yeah. And I'm like, because everything you want in life is on the other side of that pile of poop. That represents all the shit you got to do.
Love that philosophy.
And so you got to move that shit, and you got to do it, because you know it is that journey. But that is a metaphor for there's a lot of poop and a lot of stuff ahead of you that you're just not going to want to do, and you got to just get over it and just kick it out of the way and just do it. Show up every day, be consistent, create those habits. And whether you like to do it, whether you don't like to do it, you just got to realize, man, by doing this, I will ultimately become more successful. I firmly believe the level of health is tied to your wealth. There's a definite connection between your fitness and your brain. You need energy, obviously, if you're going to show up every day and do the types of things that you two know and I know you need to be doing if you're going to be wildly successful in business.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
True. And so you mentioned a little bit about your coaching and mentor program. I see that you have your hat on called Capital School. Can you tell us a little bit more about what you do and how your program runs? One of our listeners want to join.
Sure.
Wow.
I realized a couple of years ago, as I was watching a Steve Harvey, a TV show, and it was really interesting because when I started my consulting and my coaching business, it wasn't Capital School. I wasn't doing what I'm doing today. It was more mindset success. Let's put together a roadmap. Let me help you as a business owner, just as a person in general, you know, create the habits, the goals. And we actually called that other coaching program, Build a Beast. You're building your inner beast.
Mm-hmm.
One day I just realized I'm talking to so many people that like have dreams. They want to be doing bigger things in life. And as I talk to people, what I'm finding is it's not the living belief that they can or they can't do those things. They always say, I just don't have the money. You know, if I had the money, I'd open the restaurant, or if I had the money, I'd be investing in real estate, or if I had the money, I'd be doing this. And so one day I was actually watching Steve Harvey show, and I had kind of heard this before from other coaches, like my good friend, Coach Michael Burke. And Steve Harvey said, you know, to his audience, it's my belief that everybody here in my audience has a unique talent or a unique gift. And he said, I call that you're something special. He said, it's inside of you. It's like, it's if you ever go to a Build-A-Bear and they put that little red heart inside that little bear, inside you is that special gift. It's that unique talent. It's your hard primary skill. And he said to this audience that he was in front of, if you can find out what that is and discover it and create content around it, or in some way deliver that to the world where it transforms people, helps them, it's a magical thing. It'll change other people's lives, but more importantly, man, it will change yours as well in a very, very impactful way. And I took that and I listened to it, and about 2, maybe 3 weeks later, I still remember the day vividly. I was on my patio, because we live on a beautiful river, and I was just enjoying a scotch, just listening to the birds. And man, it just hit me like a ton of bricks. I'm like, oh my God, my gift, my skill is I know how to raise money better than anybody I've ever met. I mean, I built an entire $1 million oil company. Now I can teach people how to solve problems, how to raise money, how to attract investors. And so I met with my coach and I shared the idea, said, bingo, that's it, man, niche down. That is going to be a game changer. And so we launched a brand that we call Capital School with the Vault, that basically teaches business owners, entrepreneurs, really anybody, how to attract, how to raise, and how to close capital from individuals so that you can build, buy, or scale a business, or just be doing something bigger in life. And it's now a global platform. We've impacted literally thousands of people in countries all over the world today. We have students in Australia, New Zealand, and England, and Canada, and the Asian nations, over in the Middle East. You know, it was so cool because we just did an event in April, and I had 3 people that came all the way from England. And
no way.
Came from Australia, and other people that came from Canada. And so we had a global audience just right there in this little room. And it was really very humbling to think people would travel around the world to, quote, be in my presence. But that's just the environment and the community that we've created. And so many people through DMs and text and videos and testimonials have said, man, you've changed my life. You know, now I own $80 million in real estate, or now I've flipped a couple houses because I know how to attract investor capital. And I'm creating a legacy and I'm creating wealth because, you know, Ed Milet, if you've ever interviewed or heard Ed speak, he's a great guy.
I was on his show.
Okay. He says that in every wealthy family, you got to realize at one time they were poor. It was that
Exactly.
one person that showed up that changed the legacy of that family from that person forward. So why
Such a
should it
good
not be
point.
you?
Yeah, I never
And,
thought about it
it's
that
really,
way.
when you think about that, in everybody's power to do that, because, we're all created, quote, is God, if you read the Bible, in his likeness. So God's giving you the gift of greatness. God's giving you the gift of abundance, but it's
Step
just
into it.
yeah, but exactly. You got to lean into it. You got to see it. And more importantly, you got to show up every day because you are capable of doing those things. And I think a lot of people just feel that they're, quote, not worthy. And it's unfortunate that a lot of people have that attitude of, I'm just not worthy. Yes, you are, because you were created in God's likeness and God gave you the gift of greatness.
They have to change their belief system around how they feel. And that's been huge for me. But I know Alexa and I were talking before we had you on the podcast, and we were fascinated that you raised $2 billion in capital. So what would you say is like the number one skill you had to master in order to do that?
It's a great question. Well, first of all, to raise over $2 billion, you don't raise that yourself. You have other people raise it for you. So, my skill set and what sets me apart largely from some of these other experts out there is I know how to work with family offices. I raise money globally from sovereign wealth funds and sovereign nations. So you get other people to help raise that capital. But the one thing that I would tell you, you really need to understand is nobody, and I mean nobody, will invest with you until you build trust and you build a relationship. The biggest mistake that I always see people make is they'll have a project, they'll have a deal, or they have a fund, and they're in front of somebody that definitely has money, and they start talking about the opportunity of investing with them much too prematurely in the process. And, when you present an opportunity or an idea out of respect for you, that other person is going to say, Samantha, that sounds pretty interesting. Do you have something you can send me that I can take a look at? So you naturally do that. And then when you follow up and you ask the person to move forward and invest with you, they're very evasive, they're non-committal, and they never open up their checkbook. And the reason for that is it could be the best deal in the world. You could be the smartest person with a PhD, but very subconsciously they're saying, Samantha, I just really don't trust you and know you enough to move forward in this process with you. And so what I've done with my knowledge and my expertise is created what I call these pillars of success in capital school. I call them key concepts. And once you understand these key concepts and then apply them to the meetings, the conversations, the Zooms, you will be very successful as a capital raiser. There are things like the trust sequence. Those are 6 things that you need to master one after another to build trust and build a relationship, or the 4-step blueprint, or the validation phrase. And so these things that I talk about in our community will allow people to say, oh, I get that now, that makes sense. And then when I start meeting with investors, they're able to raise the capital and have the level of success they're looking for.
Wow. I couldn't agree more with you. I've learned, like, having my own business, people need to know, like, and trust you in order to do business with you. So that's amazing that you're taking those concepts and that pillars and you're breaking it up and teaching those. That's awesome.
So here's the big secret. And this is like the golden nugget.
Right. I'm listening.
if you become a person of interest, or you become a person that others will follow, think of it this way. Have you ever been in a situation where a salesperson was kind of chasing you? Like you felt they were calling you out of desperation, like, man, like, it's like, just get away. Like, I'm not interested, you see? And so what I've learned is if you can attract business to you where they're seeking you out, like, dude, I want to hire you. It's that
energy.
It's much easier to build a multi-million-dollar business when people are calling out to you saying, hey, I saw you, or I heard you and I want to know more, rather than you having to cold call, right? And hire a team of people where they're trying to sell and chase. So think of it that way. You want to be an attractive person using social media, using your skills to bring business to you, rather than having to chase business or having to pursue business, which is much, much more difficult and much, much more challenging.
I agree.
Yeah, that is such a good point. And social media is an amazing tool, and using it in the right way is so critical because, like you just said, you can actually attract buyers to you instead of chasing them, and build that trust and build that relationship up front where you're just doing these amazing things in the media,
Exactly.
and they're going to come to you
Yep.
because of what you have to offer, and they're going to seek you out. Such a great point.
Mhm.
That's it.
Think of
Yep,
that.
absolutely.
Yeah, so I mean, it sounds like you're doing so much, and you're obviously have been knighted, and you're a sir, and you're a #1 selling author, and you have this capital school. So what is next for you?
Oh, boy, that's an open
It's a
question.
loaded
you
question.
know.
I know, it's kind of like, what is the
You
meaning
know,
of
it's
life
like,
type of question,
what
and
do you,
it
what
can
do you,
go
what
in
do you
so
do
many
after you're
different
knighted, or after you fly in your own private jet multiple times? It's like,
spots.
start thinking bigger. And what's really interesting is I, get on these stages alongside people like, Jesse Itzler, Floyd Mayweather, John Maxwell, Brandon Dawson. I'm like, man, like, what's the next thing? And I think the next thing for us is we have these students all around the world that just know me virtually. And so we did a big event. We call our big event every year Capital Con. And, we have people like Shark Tank's Kevin Harrington there as a keynote speaker. We invited Sharon Lachter, who's a great literary
Love
author.
her. She's
Sharon
so
was a
great.
partner to Robert Kiyosaki with the Rich Dad, Poor Dad series. And of course, did the Outwitting the Devil manuscript. She was there. My good friend, Coach Michael Burge, is just an absolute stud.
He's
Dr.
great.
Kevin
He's
Elko,
awesome.
Yep. So, Dr. Kevin Elko, a sports psychologist that has 36 championship rings and is the personal coach to people like Nick Saban and many of the Super Bowl teams. So we had a great, what I would call headliner panel. So my real vision is to take that theme or now start doing events globally. And so we're trying to find the right partners to do a big event in London and another big event in Australia, knowing that we already largely have the audience assembled there, but that would then give our community and the people that know me the chance to come together and to really, really just, I think do better, be much more transformative. And so it's really just taking the Calvin School platform that we built, imparting the knowledge, and now just going much more deeper and more global with the people that are in our community and start doing events at a much larger scale.
Have you ever heard of Barry Baumgardner? I know she does huge events. She does Tony Robbins events and Ferdinand Graziosi and who else? He's huge into the, I'm forgetting his name. I'll message you after, but I know she's the one who coordinates those events. I can give you her name.
Yeah, I'd love to talk to her. I think that's one of the big secrets. If you're going to do a big event, is you hire an event planning company that knows the marketing and knows how to get people in the room. So that, you can have a much larger audience. They do it very professionally. It's synchronized. This event that I was at, I know the guy probably hired Michael Brunson. I mean, not Michael, Russell Brunson.
Russell, yeah.
But there's a right way to do an event and a wrong way. And we want to really create a positive impact and get in front of as many people as we possibly can. Because I think that the science and skill of learning how to attract and raise capital is really something that everybody should understand, or at least know it's an option. Robert Kiyosaki in the book, Rich Dad, Poor Dad says, look, one of the keys to creating legacy wealth is understanding the principle of using OPM, other people's money.
Yes.
Because you're limited by your own physical resources. If you don't have 2 dimes to rub together, how in the heck are you ever going to flip a house or invest in real estate? But if you want to do that, you realize if I can find 1 or 2 investors, I can then buy the house, renovate it, flip it, and split the profits 50-50. And now I've got some capital behind me where I can do another one and then another one. If you continue to rinse and repeat that process, you wake up a year or 2 years later, you're like, wow, I got a couple $100,000 in my bank account because I've successfully flipped 4 houses. And so it's just, it's just taking action. It's kind of like the Nike slogan. You just got to do it.
Just do it.
Part of it is just showing up, right? Just like
Exactly.
it's just making the effort to show up.
And not thinking about the how, just doing it.
You got to commit first.
Exactly.
And the solution will always present itself to you. It's just one of those things where if you have an idea or you're thinking about doing something, just commit to doing it. You might not know how to do it. You might not know what you're going to do to get that done, but just do it.
Exactly.
A good example of that, where the solution kind of presents itself, is when I was invited to speak at an event in Miami, alongside Brandon Dawson, of course, that Grant Cardone's partner at
Yes.
10 Minutes, Jesse Itzler, who is, of course, married to Sarah Blankley, one of the best speakers I've ever shared the stage with, hip hop recording artist, Rich the Kid, Floyd Mayweather, all these just, great people. I went to my wife and I said, it's time in my career to fly down to that event in my private jet. And she looked at me like, who in heaven are you trying to impress? Like, you don't need to impress anybody. I'm like, I realize that, but it's going to do something for me, because I do have a desire someday to eventually own one. And I want to experience what it's like to just fly down in my own plane, like own the whole jet, like
Ed Milet.
Ed Milet. It's going to be my jet. I'm going to promote it. And here I come, and she's like, you have any idea what that costs? I have like no idea. I'm going to do it. So
It's gonna happen.
calling charter companies and to rent a private jet, the Citation 3 from Houston to Miami, a round trip was $35,000. And I said, send me the contract. So here I commit myself, and I'm realizing now, like, what in the heck did I just do? Like, who am I trying to really impress here? But I did it. And so what I realized about 2 weeks after I committed is like, look, I could go United Airlines for $350 and even fly first class for $1,200, but here it's $35,000.
The feeling is so different.
But let me tell you what I did, which was really smart. I went to my social media. We were talking about the importance of a community and a following. And I said, who here that follows me would like to spend an entire afternoon on a private jet round trip from Houston to Miami, be in the front row with me right alongside Floyd Mayweather, Brandon Dawson, Jesse Itzler, hip hop musical recording us. And I sold the other 8 seats for $5,000 a piece.
Wow.
Essentially what I did is I flew for free.
That's so smart. Look at you.
Experience, but that's how the entrepreneurial mind will work. You commit. And I'm like, how in the world?
Figure it out later.
$35,000. The solution was sell the other seats, just like in airlines. And all these other people are what? They're 7- and 8-figure entrepreneurs. Well, those are the types of people that I want to be around. So we're flying down there, man. We're having champagne. Of course, we own the plane. We're networking. We're changing seats to meet everybody. And what it became was like a big event in the sky where all these 7- 8-figure people now are best buddies. They didn't know each other until they showed up at the airport. And when we landed, they said, man, just that 2-hour ride was worth that $5,000, because now I know all these other 7- and 8-figure.
Proximity is power, for sure.
Yes, exactly. So proximity is power. And for many of those entrepreneurs, that $5,000 was the proximity to get on that jet with the other passengers that were going to be there right along with them. You bet.
Wow, this has been such an amazing episode. You are just filled with so much wisdom. So for our followers, where can they find you? Do you have a website? I know you have an Instagram, Facebook.
Absolutely. So the easiest way to connect with me is to just follow me on Instagram. My Instagram is my first and last name. It's got that little blue check so that it is the real me, because there have been some fakers and some imposters. But it's just bradblazar.com. And my last name is spelled with 2 A's. It's B like boy, L-A, Z like zebra, A-R. So just Brad Blazer. Send me a DM, become a follower. If you like some of my posts or my reels, let me know. I always love to engage with my audience. My website's exactly the same, bradblazar.com, and you'll see all my books there that I've written. We've got 3 books that are all great reads. We got, of course, On the Wings of Eagles. We got basically, put some thrive in your hive, and also, of course, the one on raising capital game. So all of those are on Amazon, or you can order them off the website. We'll autograph them. We'll ship them right out to you. And then, of course, LinkedIn, Facebook, all of those other channels as well. But the big thing for me and our team, because we obviously have a team of people, is just engagement. It's adding value, and it's just making people realize that you can really do anything in life you desire or want to do, to be thinking bigger. Because if you don't have the money or the capital, I guarantee other people do. And we wake up every day surrounded by all the money we need to pretty much do anything in life we desire. We call those other people investors. And nobody teaches people how to attract investors, communicate to investors, and raise money from investors than we do here at Capital School.
You're incredible. Thank you so much for coming on our show. We really enjoyed having you, Brad.
Well, thank you so much. It's been a pleasure and a great time to be here with the two of you. And be hosted, and hopefully your audience really has learned a lot. Anytime you want me to come back, I'll be more than happy to do so, and would love to have you both on our stage when we do one of our big events.
Yes,
We
that
would
be-
absolutely love that.
Yeah, we would love that so much. And well, thank you so much for all our listeners. If you enjoyed this podcast, please give it a like and share. And we're sending you all love and light. I hope you all have a great day.
Take care.
Have a good one. Bye.